We're back, and I'm Alvin DeRoche. This is Colleen, and she has a little story she'd like to tell.
I don't know if I want to tell it now.
Why not?
Okay, fine. Do you want to tell it?
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'd like to make a point concerning the child protection system in Canada today.
Okay.
And the story has to do with a family that existed 2,000 years ago, but it is relevant. There was a family, a small family, that was traveling to another town to visit their temple, and they were traveling with a lot of other families from their home community. So they got to the temple and did, temple people stuff. And then when they were done, they all packed up and left towards home. But about a day and a half into their travels, one of the mothers was like, "Oh my goodness, where's my son?" She couldn't find her son after a day and a half. You know,
Good
so
thing social services wasn't around.
they traveled all the way back to the town with the temple and found their son sitting there questioning the rabbis. But my point being exactly that, they didn't notice for 2 days that their son was missing. Like, if that happened to some family here today, "Oh, I haven't seen my son in 2 days, what the hell?" Social services would be banging your door down.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And we wouldn't have had a holy story had Jesus been put in foster care, but maybe that's why there's such a gap. Maybe because...
Well, if the ministry had been there, Alvin, they would have... A social worker would have seen them as, religious fanatics. And Joseph was only a stepfather.
Yeah, true.
And Mary was pregnant at the age of 16. I mean, that's pretty young. I don't think they would have had a chance.
Yeah, true.
And what my point is that, parents can't make mistakes and still continue to raise their children. I mean, they aren't apprehending just abused and neglected children. In fact, there's lots of abused and neglected children that are neglected by the Ministry of Children and Families and Children's Aid because they're so busy focusing on the parents that haven't committed any crime, haven't committed any abuse. They just need a hand,
Let's give the audience some numbers. 100 children in BC go missing from the foster care system every year. Their file remains open, which means that they collect federal funds for the provincial children that are missing from foster care. If you were to assume that over a 10-year period, 100 children go missing every year, that's 1,000 children in 10 years. Times that by 10 provinces, because we do mirror the problems in every province, that adds up. That's 1,000 children over a 10-year period from every province, and eventually you have 10,000 children, 10,000 Canadian children missing. Now, most of them probably, half of them end up showing up at one point or another, but that still doesn't excuse the social workers or the system from collecting federal funds on those missing children while they're not in care.
They may know where the children are at eventually, but they put very little effort into looking for those children, and a lot of those children, end up on the streets, and,
The social worker comes by, collects them, throws them back into foster care.
They run away again.
Again and again and
but
again.
They don't. The ministry still collects money for the children that are living out on the street, and they're getting into drugs and prostitution. And I've met kids as young as 12.
Much better off than being with their family.
I've met kids that are as young as 12 that are living on the street after leaving a foster home. But yeah, the family situation, even if there was, for whatever reason, stresses in the family caused a little bit of neglect to occur, or there was one, semi-abusive incident. And I mean by semi-abusive, I mean every parent has a breaking point when there's lots of stress in their life. It doesn't mean you should be condemned for life. Just because you have a cocaine habit doesn't mean you abuse your kid. Just because you, have an alcohol problem doesn't mean that there's severe neglect or you're not buying the proper nutritious food for your children. But obviously that isn't, even if you have an alcoholic family, you're probably, as long as there's not a hideous amount of abuse occurring, you're probably better off there than in a foster home in the care of the Ministry of the Children and Families.
Let's touch again on the problem of this.
And just getting a hand from the ministry, like help, for whatever problem is causing your alcoholism or your drug addiction, just getting the help for that might be all you need, but having your children taken away for life is going to make it so much worse, and your child isn't going to benefit in any way.
That's right. Yeah. Now, with the foster people, or the foster parents getting more money for a child that has a mental disorder. Now, we touched upon the reasons why, they bring the children to a doctor, and again, it's a medical practitioner who is diagnosing these children with the mental disorders, not a psychiatrist or a psychologist in most instances. It's just a medical practitioner. And 6,500 of the 10,000 children that are in care today do have that label on them, which gives them more money. It gives the ministry more money, and supposedly the foster parents gets a little bit more money for accepting that child into the home. Now, again, if you mirror that right across the country, then that's 65,000 children who are, with medical disorders. And there was a news show just recently, I think on W5, that reflected this in the school system as well. If a child is acting up, the school board or the principal might call the parent and say, we're not accepting your child unless you, back into the school system, unless you drug them. And is this the way we want our children to end up? Drugged. At an early age, so early are they taking drugs now that, it's going to be nothing for them to do it when they're in their 20s and 30s. They'll just think, well, the school board system said that it was okay to take drugs. These people said it was okay to take drugs. It's not okay to take drugs.